Anatomy of a Fall, addressing the bad reviews. Today we will look at some of the bad reviews that are aimed at the Palme d'Or winning thriller Anatomy of a Fall. I watched the film on Monday at the Hackney Picture House, one of my favourite cinemas in London, and only £8 a ticket on Mondays. For those who are nearby, I do recommend it. So the picture opens in a very cold, desolate, mountainous alpine region in France. You are thrown into a world that is detached and somewhat claustrophobic. We meet our protagonist, Sandra, clenching a glass of wine, talking to a journalist. And loud music blares out from above and the film's dramatic tale begins. The big turning point comes when the body of her husband is discovered by their blind son, who is returning from a dog walk. His father has seemingly fallen from the 3-story chalet, hit his head and died. The journey we go on from here is more of the study of the anatomy of Sandra's emotions rather than the fall itself. The unravelling of her life as her life, thoughts, decisions and freedoms are dragged through the mud. Side point, the performance of Sandra Hüller is outstanding, and for me she is a strong Oscar contender. And all the other performances by her son in particular, but the lawyers and all the other characters in the movie I thought were excellent. So you can tell I clearly like the film. Overall, this film has been overwhelmingly well received as a thrilling, compelling drama, but it has also strangely received many negative reviews, so I thought we would check them out. Firstly, a Google review from Costas. 150 minutes are far too many minutes for such a slow-moving scenario, thus making it an unpleasant, if not boring, experience. I also found that the lack of an inspiring filmmaking technique contributed to the boredom I felt for this movie. Okay, it is long. I was surprised to see that runtime, but we are watching a cinematic movie. Justin Triet, who I don't know much, seems to be a very capable director, and in my opinion, she is creating a masterpiece here, and not a tidy 90-minute episode for an evening in front of the TV. So we should keep that in mind. Regarding the filmmaking techniques used in the movie, these are probably the most compelling part of the film for me. It's noticeable she uses different cameras, different camera angles, sometimes an old VHS style when certain people are being interviewed, but this VHS style seems to creep in other scenes. I like that she has this freedom. As a director, I found this refreshingly liberating. It's okay to challenge the audience like this in this way. She's using the camera to unsettle and throw you into the action. Totally deliberate and totally valid. Here we have a director who is free to tell a story, free to do with the camera exactly what she wanted. And it reminded me of the Dogma films that came out of Scandinavia, such as Festen, where the entire film was shot with a handheld VHS camera. So next we have James, who says the film is pretentious, boring, way too long, lazy camera work, cropped frames that looked like an amateur effort, pretentious camera angles, up through the gaps in the ceiling of the chalet, jarring out-of-tune soundtrack, beyond pretentious and so obvious. The crassest characterization, prosecutors a skinhead, crass, unsubtle attempt to generate sympathy for the kid by making him disabled. Ouch! So he really goes for the jugular there, James. So we have covered the fact that I like the camera angles. They are a choice by the director, and they're maybe not for everybody, I understand that. But let's look at the word pretentious. Did James realise he was watching a French film? French films don't follow the formula. They steer into whatever direction the director feels. You're not going to get that Hollywood polish that is often imposed by producers and studios. If you go back to the early Polanski films, Sam Peckinpah and Scorsese, look at their early work, you'll see some kind of freedom in direction that was lost in Western films during the 80s. But French cinema has clung on to true cinema, and French cinema was never contained by that influence, so it should be celebrated, not something that should be seen as a negative. So let's ignore the skinhead comment. I mean, why can't a prosecutor be bald? He was certainly a good actor, and maybe he was playing another part where he had to have his head shaved. So perfectly fine for me. So let's look at the son, Daniel. Was he there just to gain more sympathy from the audience? Or let's make him blind, much more interesting. Well, no, because Daniel is the key to the whole film. The film is built around his story and childhood. Without Daniel, the film wouldn't have much purpose. He's not just there to make you care. He's there because the story is about him. And also mentioned was the soundtrack. Okay, the film is scored by music played within the film itself, so from a stereo player or from a piano. There is no atmospheric music added to the film, which in itself could be called pretentious, but it also creates a reality. You feel like you are there. A film like this could have used huge wide-angle shots, a Hans Zimmer orchestral number to further push you into the main character's dilemma. But in fact, Justine Triet is just too damn good. She knows it, and she can tell a story without the help of an external party. It's so good, in fact, I wish more directors were allowed to create films this way, as cinema would definitely be more exciting and we would be able to tell who the good directors are and the ones that hide behind millions of pounds worth of production equipment. Our last comment comes from Keith, who says, "The anatomy draws a blank. No conclusive evidence either way, and for the bereaved who cannot stop crying, there's no effort to understand, analyse or look for evidence herself to establish cause, motive or question if there had been any third-party input. The bereft always want answers." Now, I find this interesting. We are so used to seeing thrillers that make us part of the anatomy or dissection in order to make our own conclusions. Here we're kind of frozen without any real purpose. Our brains keep drawing a blank. No evidence is discovered, and I believe the film even has the line, "We never found the murder weapon." That's a massive thing, which is almost a throwaway line in the film. So we are lost to what the jury is thinking and can't really add things up ourselves. For me, this isn't a Matthew McConaughey A Time to Kill. This is a portrait of a distressed family which is unable to grieve, an entirely different route into a courtroom drama. Which raises the question, why do all films have to fit a mould? We have hundreds of Scandinavian thrillers on TV to watch. What is wrong with steering in a new direction and challenging the brain in a new way? When things don't fit a particular mould, people seem to get worried. The film is earthy, ballsy, fierce, personal, and not a minute of the runtime felt out of place to me. I do like reading reviews, good and bad, and they are all valid. It's also interesting when the bad reviews seem to highlight the film's strength as opposed to destroy the film's integrity. Not everyone likes watching all films, and that's why we love cinema. I would love to know your thoughts on the film. Please post below. Did any of these comments resonate with you? Did you fall asleep during the film? I know I didn't. Thank you for watching.